Equity Investigation and Improvement Plan by Debbie Harrison. The learning environments in low-income schools versus affluent schools is quite different. In low-income schools, there are usually more minority group students, lower standardized test scores, smaller campuses, larger class sizes, and less technology. The budgetary constraints of the businesses in that area prevent them from donating resources in many cases. The higher poverty of the citizens in the district may cause fewer volunteers to be able to work at the school, as they must work full-time to provide for their families. In affluent schools, there usually are fewer minority group students, higher standardized test scores, larger campuses, smaller class sizes, more student activities, more technology, and the wealth from the surrounding citizens and businesses in the district may allow for more donation of resources and more available volunteers. The perceptions of the stakeholders. In low-income schools, there's less optimism overall. The parents have fewer resources, the communities have fewer resources, so there's more difficulties in recruiting professionals and other staff members, and teachers are less able to provide educational supplies from their own pockets. In affluent schools, there's more optimism overall. Parents have more resources, communities have more resources, there are fewer difficulties in recruiting professionals and other staff members, and teachers are more able to provide educational supplies from their own pockets. The perceptions of the authors that we've read in this week's module. Stevenson cites a sense of hopelessness and despair in communities that have lower poverty. They have a lower self-image. But there's power in having an identity. It can empower you. The opposite of poverty, he says, is not wealth, but justice, and that a society will be judged on how they treat their poor. Schwartz says that one can either make more rules and incentives, which are more demoralizing, or you can do the right thing using practical wisdom, which is the will and the skill to do right by others. Rosenthal talks about ethical reasoning, which is a process of raising awareness of moral claims and applying principles to arising circumstances. He says that ethical inquiry is proactive rather than passive, that there should be a sense of fairness, and that ethics play a central role in navigating the ideal vision and the realities of daily life, that leaders should have principled leadership. The improvement plan I would put forth would consist of 4 different facets. First, maybe an equitable redistribution of state funds collected for education would be in order, as was actually enacted in the state of Texas. Poorer districts received monies from richer districts in the state. Second, local businesses, especially ones that are connected to large corporate resources, may be able to locate resources for donation to the school. Third, local citizens understanding the importance of contacting their local elected officials about education equity issues and voting in elections based on what they believe the candidates would provide in the way of education equity. Fourth, where there are fewer volunteers available to help, schools and communities could use volunteers from organizations such as AARP and RSVP, who have retired persons willing to volunteer their time to help schools and other people in their communities. Me as a stakeholder. The plan, as viewed from my position as a stakeholder, such as a teacher working in the school district, and or a parent whose children are in the school district, and or as just a citizen and a voter. The equitable redistribution of state funds collected for education would be positive in my view as a stakeholder. It would help those in my community, help those in my classroom, help my children in the classrooms. Locating resources for donation would be another optimistic way to handle this education inequity. I would try to encourage people to understand who's running for offices, how they feel about poor school districts and this inequity that is apparent, how they would act, contacting state officials and local officials and asking them to act on our behalf, and using volunteers. Anytime you can get volunteers, especially retired volunteers with a lifetime of experience and knowledge, would be a benefit to any school. How this looks with me as a leader. So the plan is viewed from my position as an administrator working in the school district and/or as a citizen leader and voter in the state. Once again, I would think that these were all positive moves to help with difficulties in school districts. The equitable redistribution of school funds. Affluent districts don't always need the educational funds raised in their district, and those can be reallocated to lower income schools. The locating resources for donation. Certainly the businesses and the community would want to contribute to this, and that would be one way that they could do that. Also, local officials and state officials it would be in their best interest to help donate their time, their resources, addressing educational inequities. That works as a positive for them and a positive for the district. And also using volunteers from these organizations. As a leader, I would be approaching these organizations and asking them for their assistance in the low-income district.